Morbidly beautiful radio. We horror.
Did you hear the one about the man who can't be destroyed? He was buried alive.
What more can you do to a human being? This is inhuman. He's gotta be crushed, just under the weight of that much dirt.
He was set on fire.
What the hell is going on? Come on! Put down the cat! Get on fire!
They carried him away. But he keeps coming back. Don't be afraid. Be terrified. As I lay me down to sleep, I pray my soul is mine to keep. My soul can never step outside this bed, never into all the evil. Now back from the dead.
Are you scared?
Be here.
And welcome to another episode of the Calling Hours Horror Podcast on Morbidly Beautiful Radio. Once again, it is I, your head undertaker, the dead man Michael Jones of MorbidlyBeautiful.com, Coughing Cuties magazine, and Digital Dead magazine. Welcome, listeners, and it is the second episode in our Women in Horror 2018 series. And tonight's special guest, I will have none other than my good friend and fellow journalist, Rebekah Herzberg. Most of you should know Rebekah as a writer, filmmaker, ballerina, stage actress, sculptress, photographer, and damn near everything else. She has written for various publications and was a TV personality for Oxygen's Snapped and Investigation Discovery's Deadly Women, and is considered a strong female force in the horror industry, and she hosts panels and film conventions to discuss feminism and horror. Rebekah has been involved with ballet and modeling since she was a little girl, and frequently stays involved with musical theater. So make sure to stay tuned in at the 8:30 time slot to hear my interview with Rebekah. In our Digital Dismemberment Spotlights this evening, we will be covering Velocity Entertainment's Slaughterhouse of the Rising Sun, as well as Scream Factory's Blu-ray release of George Romero's Day of the Dead. Now, Slaughterhouse of the Rising Sun is a little bit of an interesting choice. This was one of the very first films that I reviewed on DVD when I started writing at Horror Society, and I think it'll be fun to go back and look at this film. As far as our second one, Scream Factory's Blu-ray release of Day of the Dead from George Romero, I mean, we're talking classic, and you know me, when it comes to the Dead Man, zombie movies pretty much are my thing. And again, it's another absolutely fantastic release. I can't wait to get into that. We will also be hearing from 3 bands in our Metal Massacre Spotlight this evening. In fact, let's get to our first one. The name of the band is Cannibal Corpse. The CD is Butchered at Birth. And the song is Meat Hook Sodomy. welcome back. You just heard the band Cannibal Corpse. The CD was Butchered at Birth, and the song was Meat Hook Sodomy. Cannibal Corpse is an American death metal band from Buffalo, New York. Formed in December 1988, the band has released 14 studio albums, 2 box sets, 4 video albums, and 2 live albums. To find out more about this band, where they're touring, and to pick up their merchandise, make sure to head on over to www.facebook.com/Cannibal Corpse. Coming up in just a few moments, we're going to have our feature interview with one of the greatest ambassadors to women in horror, in my opinion, Rebekah Herzberg. But before that, let me remind everyone that on Friday nights on Mile High Radio, you can listen to the Calling Hours Horror Podcast starting at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 Pacific. But before we get to all of that goodness, it's time for some digital dismemberment. In our first Digital Dismemberment Spotlight this evening, we are covering the DVD release of Velocity Entertainment's Slaughterhouse of the Rising Sun. This film was directed by Vin Crease and produced by Jonathan A. Stein. The cast includes Cheryl Dent, Vin Crease, Michelle Moreau, Ryan Rogoff, Michael Schuster, J. Scott Shonka, Heather J. Thomas, Pancho Moeller-Young, Chelsea Cole, Tom Wheatley, Todd Duffy, Chris Garnett, Sheila Grenham, E.M. Smith, Jim Lane, Klaus Eitan Grahl, Carl Anderson, Wendy Cole, Bonnie Lewis, Larry Harper, and Danielle Gang. And, there will be spoilers in this, so you are aware. The premise. The year is 1971. Jennifer, a troubled actress, is institutionalized following psychotic visions on the set of her latest film. Upon her release, Jennifer becomes stranded in the desert only to be rescued by a colorful band of nomadic rebels. Helpless and alone, Jennifer has no choice but to follow them and is subtly but swiftly inducted into their family. That night, a local desert dweller tells them of an abandoned house and warns them to stay away. The family ignores the warning and uses the house as their latest crash pad. Jennifer becomes further plagued by sinister visions that reduce her ability to separate reality from fantasy. Soon, members of the family are mysteriously killed one by one in the legend known as Slaughterhouse of the Rising Sun. Now, this was an interesting lost film that crossed my path. It was shot in a style that really makes you feel that you are watching a film that was made in the 70s, and it has a gritty look and shocking realism that would fit in well with any 70s double feature. The look and feel of the film is further enhanced with the psychedelic drug feel and a grainy look of the print with scratches and flaws. Also of special note, the continuity is excellent. I didn't find a single instance of something from now being in the film and out of place. The movie starts off with Jennifer acting in a porno film. In the middle of her sex scene, she starts to hallucinate and attacks the young actor she is working with. We flash forward and Jennifer is being released from a mental institution. Instead of going to visit her parents, she wanders off on her own only to be run off the road by 2 guys. During her escape, she meets up with some nomadic hippies with some very scary similarities to Charles Manson and his clan living in the desert. After a night of drugs and a campfire music fest, they head off to a supposed haunted house that they were warned to stay away from. What happens at the house is a horrific nightmare as the small band of hippies is slowly and methodically murdered. Jennifer is thought to be the killer by the psychotic hippies, but is that really the case? Amongst the assorted brew, we have a face being scratched up with fingernails, several throat slittings, a stabbing with some internal play, if you catch my drift, a horrific face mutilation, a fall down the steps, a hanging, and a heart removal. Are they being attacked by a psychotic killer? Are Jennifer's hallucinations real? Or is she behind the whole thing? Was Jennifer responsible for her younger sister's death by drowning? Open the door to the slaughterhouse and find out for yourself. Now, the special features and extras included on this disc include a trailer for Sleepover Nightmare. This is letterboxed with all the gore and nubile young women to get you interested. The boat motor murder reminds me of the scene in Zombie Holocaust. This runs about 1 minute and 48 seconds. There's a trailer for Ripper 2. It's letterboxed. And assorted popular music and nail guns are pretty much the theme of this one. It runs about 3 minutes and 48 seconds. And finally, there is a trailer for Snapped. This is letterboxed with an interesting twist on the snuff film idea. This one runs about 1 minute and 8 seconds. Now, there's a featurette entitled Losing the Light, The Unmaking of Slaughterhouse of the Rising Sun. This feature runs 14 minutes, 50 seconds. This includes interview segments with Adam Levine, who was the editor, Jeff Darby, who did the sound, Mary Kay Woods, who was an actress in it, Jim Powers, Marty Reeves, and Jonathan, who were actors, and Jonathan Stein, who was the producer. They cover everything including sound, continuity, drugs, orgies, pimping, spiritual and social implications, and Vin's imprisonment and death. Also included is a deleted scenes montage. This runs about 6 minutes and 37 seconds. This segment shows assorted, extended, and deleted scenes sandwiched between a musical montage that takes place around the campfire scene in the desert. Scenes include a Kill the Man segment, an anti-war rant, a mocking of the roadside preacher by Jennifer as she recounts her past, an extended chase and death scene that also includes a hand being nailed to the wall, additional desert footage, and Jennifer licking a rather large lollipop. Kind of strange. But, for what this movie was, for a supposed lost film from the 70s, everything fits in. It's a good little companion piece. The year of production for this film was 2004. It was released in 2005 on DVD. Runs 96 minutes. It's got a 2.0 Dolby Stereo sound mix, and it's a 16:9 anamorphic 1:7:8:1 aspect ratio. So it's not quite, like a Scream Factory release in terms of the quality, in terms of what you're going to get, but this is a great piece of exploitation filmmaking, in my opinion. Everything from the look and feel of the film to the set pieces and acting captured the look and essence of the early 70s slasher genre. The backstory of the director running over and killing the producer with his car was a stroke of marketing genius. The feature, Losing the Light, The Unmaking of Slaughterhouse of the Rising Sun, really helps to lead credence to that story. Very well told and shot in the same style as the film, you really feel that you are talking with individuals that lost a piece of themselves due to their involvement in this film. A very credible film. I recommend this to anyone that has a love of the 70s horror genre, and for those looking to make their own film, the director shows that whether you use modern or older techniques, a good movie is still a good movie. I've not seen this in any major retailers, so I recommend that if this sounds of interest to you, you may have to pick it up in an online auction. I don't know where you're going to be able to find it other than eBay at this point. I give the movie 3.5 out of 5 stars. I'll give the DVD about a 6.5 out of 10. Would have liked to have seen a little bit more in terms of the special features, but again, it's a nitpick. But it's still an entertaining film, something you can sit around with your friends and really enjoy, especially if you like that 70s exploitation style of filmmaking. Coming up in just a few moments, we're going to go into our feature interview with Women in Horror ambassador Rebekah Herzberg. And it's unfair just to call her an ambassador of women in horror. She does so much more, but we'll definitely get into all that when we get into the interview at 8:30. But before that, we're going to go ahead and get into our second Metal Massacre Spotlight. The name of the band is Mortician. The CD is Darkest Day of Horror. And the name of the song is The Final Sacrifice.
Death in Heartland, America. A tragedy of macabre proportions. I can honestly tell you that I have never seen anything as shocking as what was discovered earlier today in this sleepy little farming community of Gatlin, Nebraska. Over 50 bodies in various stages of decomposition have been discovered, setting up this scene as one of the most gruesome mass murders in the history of the country.
there!
The earth shall be cleansed of those who poison earth and its youth. It is written.
Kids, you don't know what
He shall suffer for the sins of others.
Leave me alone.
Hate
Leave me alone.
that which you have sinned.
You kids are in serious trouble.
I like to play.
And welcome back. You just heard the band Mortician. The CD was Darkest Day of Horror, and the song was The Final Sacrifice. Mortician is a gore death metal band from Yonkers, New York, founded in 1989. They have released most of their albums since The House by the Cemetery EP on Relapse Records, but have released their latest album on their own label, Mortician Records. To find out more about Mortician, where they're touring, to pick up their merchandise and their CDs, head on over to www.facebook.com/Mortician. But now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our feature interview.
And you will face the sea of darkness, and all therein that may be explored.
And welcome back for our feature interview this evening. I'm having a guest on that I've had on the podcast before. She's a very respected journalist. She was the first person that really got me involved with the women in horror movement. She's a talented dancer. She's an award-winning bartender, a journalist, recently a sculptor from what I saw, and we'll definitely talk about that. Even working in photography and film. Everyone, please say hello to Rebekah Herzberg. Rebekah, welcome back to the Calling Hours.
Hi, it's nice to be back again. It's been a while.
It has, and with so much going on in the world and it being Women in Horror Month, we have so much to cover. I have a feeling this hour is going to go pretty quickly, but
Probably.
it always does with you and I, it's you and I could probably talk for hours. So kind of give people an idea of what's been going on with you. You've, like I said, I saw the sculpture that you did recently that was kind of an homage to David Cronenberg. I thought that was pretty cool.
I had actually, believe it or not, I had actually planned on finishing that months ago because we had, in my hometown, there is an art showing. People are going to sell their art. I didn't want to sell it, but I wanted to present it, and I just put it in my head, and I said, all my friends always do this in my hometown every time I'm here, and I'm always so jealous because I don't do a lot of paintings. I do all this stuff in the horror field, but as far as actually making, crafting things on my own, I never do, and I had just envisioned, if I did, it would something be very, a tribute to Cronenberg. And which the last drinks that we made, the shoot that I did for Morbidly Beautiful, my pictures, not the other girls, but my pictures especially were very Cronenberg-y, I guess. With the intro was kind of looking like a gun on me, and that was actually not planned. it just came out that way, and I was just like, wait, when we were going over here and painting everything, I was like, holy shit, I have an idea, and that just happened. But I was thinking about that, and I just envisioned the TV, which I'm actually not done with it. I want to sculpt a TV kind of like that. It takes some time because it's the first time.
I mean, I thought it was an amazing piece. If I was able to make it down there to that festival and that was for sale, I would definitely bid on that piece. Believe that. I have just the spot for it.
I'm not going to sell it. And like I said, I'm flattered. It's not even done. But I just envisioned the staticky TV, the tape, like vomiting up tape, blood everywhere. And it's great. It's a lot harder than I thought. I bought it and I was just like, yeah, this should be a piece of cake. I've seen a bunch of special features from all these movies. I can do it. And no.
No, like I said, I really thought it looked good, so I hope people appreciate the piece. Now, you spoke about the piece that you did for Morbidly Beautiful, and that was, in the past I've had you on Horror Society when I wrote there, and now I've brought you over to Morbidly Beautiful. Kind of tell everyone what that photo shoot was about and what you're doing with the Neon Diary.
Okay, so the Neon Diary is my own company, and once I is finished, I have not launched it because I'm still working on. I have a photo shoot set for tomorrow as well. I basically, everyone knows I'm obsessed with the 80s. I was an 80s kid, and I love it. And so a lot of my art that I make or my photography, it's going to be a lot of neon lit sets. And it's going to be horror, some maybe Tim Burton-ish. I'm not really like a goth person per se, but I may do some of that as well. I don't like traditional photography. I do have a photo shoot with children I did recently, and I have not. I plan on adding them to my website when it's finished because I was scared if I put it on Facebook that it would be reported. And
right.
So it get banned because it's involving kids. And so that one is still not gone live. People are like, cause I did post it like some behind the scenes, and people knew I was doing it. I get people asking me all the time. But back to the Halloween thing. But every year I always do Halloween themed cocktails. I did some for another magazine that was based on Women in the Horror Month directors. Every drink I came up with was based on their film. I even did one for BJ Calendula. I can never pronounce her name. I feel like a horrible person because I don't know how to pronounce it. But she was dealing with, she has some of the same internal problems I had. She had to deal with cancer as well, and I made a drink called Fuck Cancer that was dedicated to her. That's just an everyday thing. I love making horror themed cocktails, but this last one we did for you was probably one of the most challenging shoots that I did because I have 7 bartenders under my roof, and not all of them like each other.
Having been a bar bouncer, trust me, I know how that goes.
I didn't know that, and some of them were my friends, my best friends, and a couple of them had her falling out. Apparently, people chose sides, and I'm sitting here just like, you all look beautiful. This looks great, and there was stuff that I ran out of. We're having to do special painting on some of the girls, not green, Envy. We had to paint her completely green the whole time. She was one of the girls, and I'm just sitting here there's bickering. People are fucking over food because I special ordered food, and my house, I have the Zach studio in my house, so I got these girls running around scantily clad, wearing what they're wearing. Some of them are covered in blood, and some of them were sitting there talking shit, and we are pressed for time. There's blood everywhere. It looks like someone was fucking massacred in my house. And my boyfriend had just moved in with me too, and some of his family members came in a couple of days afterwards. There's no way I could clean that within day or two, and I felt embarrassed. And I told them, I was like, I promise it's not what it looks like. I just do like a lot of horror stuff on the side, but it was probably one of the most like even with horror film sets that I've worked in, I've never had to deal with so much chaos. And like I even set myself on fire, and one of the girls, like I almost set her on fire with one of the drinks because there's flames coming out of them. So it was definitely a challenge. From the photos, I thought they turned out great, but just looking at some people will never know when you have that many women who are bartenders and they all have egos.
Oh yeah, like I said, having been a bar bouncer, trust me, I'm sure you and I could trade stories on that stuff. I mean, ugh.
It's still fun. I'm glad we did it. But
The article got
great too.
The article got a lot of great response on Morbidly Beautiful, so
Did it really?
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to ask if it did. Well, thank you, everybody. If anybody's listening, I appreciate it. And just so you know, really, we worked until like almost 5 in the morning. There was a lot of blood to clean up, and the girls were either crying or screaming the whole time. So thank you.
Well, we definitely have to have you on more for the website. Like I said, I know Stephanie, the owner, was highly, highly impressed with your work. And, people have asked me over the years about you, the things that you do, because as I'd mentioned before, you were the person that really brought the whole women in horror movement to my attention. And, this was several years ago. And ever since then, I have always found it to be an important thing for us to talk about. With all of the scandals in Hollywood, and I'm sure that you and I are going to touch on that here in a few moments, do you feel like women are starting to get their just due in the industry?
Oh, especially with everything else, like you just mentioned, everything going on in Hollywood. I feel like a lot of this Me Too business and, what's his nuts? Oh gosh, what is his name? It's another Jewish name. I should know this. God, I can't think of it right now. I'm sorry. I just got off work.
It's okay.
His name? The whole behind this whole thing.
Oh, Weinstein.
Yeah, Weinstein. Oh
Yeah.
my God, Rebekah, that's it. My goodness. Yes, this whole Weinstein business. I feel like right now is women are finally able to say, hey, you know what? We've kept our mouths shut for fucking years. We're not going to take it anymore. A lot of them have been saying that they aren't going to take it anymore, but I feel like enough of them have been like, oh, yeah, that happened to me too. You know what? We need to step up. This is not okay. We need to fix this. And I feel like now really is the time, and I think a lot of the men in Hollywood are probably shitting themselves right now because they're fucking terrified.
Sure, as they should be.
Exactly. It's just, and some of the comments I've read from people are just disgusting. A lot of them, well, why are they just now coming out? And, they probably just want to make their money. Well, maybe in some cases, but what people don't realize is, in a lot of those cases, these women aren't believed. They're threatened. They're scared. That's why a lot of them, some of them did try to come forward. But if you have an entire army of these women, the same thing with Women in Horror Month. If you have an entire army of women which I don't know of any cases really so far about like the horror industry where people are being objectified. I'm sure there probably is. But with Women's Horror Month, the main thing was, hey, like this is a male-dominated industry. Let's get more of these women out here, like making films instead of just running around showing the tits being spread blood, because
Right.
We're smarter than that, and we can make horror films too, even if they're shitty. We're allowed to make shitty horror films, yay! But anyway,
You're just as much. No. I mean, I definitely get what you're saying, but I had an interesting question because this has been posed to me, and this goes back to the whole Victor Salva thing, and we'll touch on that too because, you were supposed to be a guest, and we just couldn't get things timed up right. But to the Weinstein thing, real quick. I spoke to another female journalist about the Weinstein situation, and she was, very heartbroken about it. And I can't say I blame her. I feel bad for anything that happened to anybody involving this entire scandal. But she had brought up the fact that now she can't even watch a movie that Weinstein was associated with. And we could come up with a list of probably 100 movies that he was involved with. With you being the cinephile that you are, just like me, do you have a problem popping in a film that he produced? Like, can you never watch Reservoir Dogs again? Can you never watch, because I mean, he was involved with a lot of horror films too as a producer. He was the money man. He wasn't the director. He didn't act, things like that. Do you feel like we should get rid of these movies because of his actions?
I'm actually glad that you brought that up because I've actually struggled at home with my boyfriend. At the moment, we've been together for a little while now. We work together. He's a cinema lover like myself, and he loves Kevin Spacey, as do I. But when that broke loose, we were both just destroyed because we wanted to watch a movie with Kevin Spacey. We were just like, I don't know if I can watch this. And I wanted to finally sit down and watch House of Cards. And I was just like, I don't know if I can watch this. And then I started to think about American Beauty, and I was like, in retrospect,
right?
I just kept thinking about him at the dinner table during American Beauty, going, "Before peas, that's the fucking asparagus."
Right. But I mean, it is an interesting argument because people.
It is hard. It is hard. Because I love those movies, and it's like, man, like, I don't want to support their work, but fuck. Like, if it were to come out that Tim, let's say that Tim Burton came out as a pedophile, but Edward Scissorhands is one of my favorite films of all time.
Sure.
And Beetlejuice. It would, I don't know, I feel almost like a hypocrite because the thing was with Victor Salva, I don't think his movies are any good. So it doesn't mean anything for me to go out there and say, yeah, this movie's made by a pedophile. I'm just going to put it out there. So I object, but at the same time, it's because I don't think that anything he's done is really that good.
And I mean, that's a fair assessment. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. And part of the reason I wanted to have you on that show when I had it was, and I know you've seen my article on it, and I know, several times that you've commented when I hear people talk about Salva and they talk about, and I don't support him. We've had this discussion in the past.
Right.
But I have found it very odd, very hypocritical from fans that, when the Jeepers Creepers 3 movie was being made, people wanted to protest, Salva should never work again, so on and so forth. And people are certainly welcome to those opinions. But what I've always found fascinating is whenever the discussion about pedophilia and things like that come up in film, it's always only his name brought up. But when you bring up a name like Roman Polanski, all of a sudden, people turn stupid. Well, what are you talking about? He's won an Academy Award. He makes high art. Why does that make a difference in people's minds, do you think?
I think in a way it kind of does. The questions that I do like to raise is this person allowed to be around child actors, for instance? For example, Victor, he shouldn't be allowed to be around child actors, and allegedly, I don't know if this is correct or not, so please don't quote me on this, because I may be wrong. But I was told that he, as a part of his court order, he's not allowed to be on the set around children, and if there are children on his set, there has to be other people present. It's kind of, I don't know exactly what it is.
That's actually 100% accurate. Yes.
Okay.
He's
That's
not.
great.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing should apply to Roman Polanski and, Repulsion. I think that's one of the most brilliant, even, a lot of his films were just great. And what happened to his, Sharon Tate and his baby, which is horrifying. That's enough to traumatize anybody. But you don't go around sleeping with underage girls. And I feel like one of the reasons why a lot of this stuff is allowed to happen is because it's become normalized.
Sure.
So people will say, well, that's just the way it is in Hollywood. If you want to get ahead, look at the movie Starry Eyes. Have you seen that movie?
No, I have not seen that.
You can just see Starry Eyes. Anybody listening needs to watch Starry Eyes. I think it's still on Netflix. In a way, it's sort of an ode to 80s cinema, but it's not an 80s film. It's about this young girl trying to get started in Hollywood, but the music is fantastic. The actors are just so engaging. Everything about this film is great. I can't remember who directed it, but kudos to them. It's one of the better independent horror films I've seen in the past few years. But anyway, the girl, in order to get ahead, it's Hollywood's basically like this not satanic, but it's a cult, and she has to give like this really old wrinkly guy running the Hollywood business like a blowjob and all this stuff, and that's really that. I feel like the men in like not even that. Some of the shit that I've worked with in the independent horror industry is the same way. People act like it's just fine. Like whenever I was one of the films that I worked on in Houston for we would do the 48-hour fest.
Mm-hmm.
We were given 48 hours. We had to write a film really quick and make it, and it was very, very, very hard. Nobody got any sleep, and this is back when Roxy Vandermeer and I were like best friends forever, and we did everything together. And one of these films that we worked on, there was a scene where she was, which by the way, this film did win 7 awards, 7 Splatterfest awards. So it did turn out great, but there's a scene where she's in the bathroom, and it's the climax of the film, and she's with Patrick Fane. He was an incredible indie actor, by the way. He made it. Congratulations, Patrick. He was even in Breaking Bad. He's in both Sin Cities. Incredible actor. Anyway, she's in the bathroom with him, and she's getting revenge and killing him, and she's topless in the scene. And I remember at the time I'm outside trying to have a cigarette break, and it's in between takes. She's in there screaming her lungs out, came out, and she goes up to the director, and she's like, "This is all great stuff, but I don't understand why I have to why am I topless in this scene?"
Right.
She's wearing just a black bikini bottom. And she just asked, why am I topless in this scene? I don't understand. It had nothing to do with the plot line. She was a little girl who was tortured and is coming back, and it didn't make any sense. And basically what they had said, and these people are friends of mine too, if you're writing it, so I know that they meant well, but they're also men. And at the same time, I was questioning it too. I don't understand why you have to be topless either. And basically, they're just sex sells. People want to see titties in movies. And I just don't think that's true. I think there are plenty, of course, okay, for instance, my boyfriend and I have a thing where it's kind of pathetic. Every time, if we are drinking a beer when we're watching a horror film, every time we see between cheers, take a sip of our beer. It's all in fun, but at the same time, there are several effective horror films that can be made without nudity. Anyway, I'm sorry. I feel like I'm talking to
No. This
we haven't in a while, and so I'm excited. I'm sorry.
No, please. This is the kind of thing that I want to talk about because I was going to mention that several of the films that I've seen recently have been films that didn't require or have any nudity. 2 films that immediately come to mind would be The Devil's Candy, which Scream Factory released not that long ago on Blu-ray, and one that's on Netflix right now, and that's The Babysitter. Both highly effective horror films with no nudity. What?
I didn't care for The Babysitter.
Really?
Honestly, just I don't know. It's no. that one. But see, I also didn't think that Get Out was great. I feel like.
Well, you and I are on the same page on that one.
I feel like the only reason why Get Out is acclaimed is just because of the subject matter. And people are acting like it's the first time. They're like, oh, well, the melody, it's black. And, of course, I'm all for that. But I'm like, don't act like there's never been no black actor in horror films ever. That's not the first time that's ever happened. And, honestly, I thought it was a comedy when I watched it. And there's a lot of backlash for that. I thought it was funny. But I didn't like it. I thought it was beautifully shot. I just don't think that it was worthy of Golden Globes and all that stuff. I thought it was very politically incorrect also, but that's just my opinion.
No, we agree. And, a lot of people asked me, I just recently was on the Horror Happens podcast, and they asked me about my top 5 horror movies of the year. Yeah, with JK. And, everyone was like, why don't you have Get Out on here? And I was like, look, it has nothing to do with the fact that it's a black lead actor. It has nothing to do with anything like that. I thought it was a well-shot film. I thought the story was good, but like you, I just didn't feel like it was this awesome, groundbreaking horror movie that so many were saying. And I had several other journalists in the genre tell me, they didn't give the movie a great review, and the second they didn't give it a great review, it turned into, oh, well, you must not like black actors, or you must not like black filmmakers. So that's why I never touched the film. From a review standpoint.
Exactly. That's neither here nor there.
Right. And then that's the sad thing about it.
It's just, the script, of course it was original, and that's another reason why it is getting praised. It's never been done before. It's just not something that I found, I didn't find it as an effective horror film, nor did it really grab my attention. And with that, I have to say that a lot of horror films have come out within the past few years. There really aren't that many good horror films at all. A lot of that stuff, it annoys the shit out of, again, I hate to keep saying, like, my boyfriend is so weird. I don't want to keep dragging him into this, but again, he is a cinema lover. He's like, he's done some stuff before. He was in a metal band and everything, and like they all loved horror films together. And so he agrees with me on a lot of this stuff, and he actually loved Get Out. That's the one thing we don't agree on. But I don't know, he gets annoyed while sitting next to me because I tell him exactly what's going to happen. As soon as the film starts, give me 15 minutes. I'm like, that's the suspect, that's the person that did it, that's a red herring right there, this is what's going to happen. He's like, can you stop doing that? And then it'll turn out that I'm right, and he's just like, how the fuck do you do that? And I'm just like, dude.
See, you and I are the same way watching horror movies. Now, that would be entertaining alone. We should do that one day. We should sit down and watch a horror movie and tape it. And sit there and we play Sherlock Holmes.
I used to love to do that, but we would just do it for ourselves, and it is entertaining. Whenever, because I grew up in hold on one second.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a family which has been compared to the Royal Tenenbaums household. What's another one? Some recent film, very Jewy film that came out. I was raised in a very strict Jewish family, or like Jewish genius family.
Right.
Basically, we all like. I have 5 brothers, 2 sisters. Almost all of us did theater and wrote. Like my brother David, Jew twins, is the twins. Like to call them, they fucking adore him. Every time they see him, I feel like they're going to eat him up, honestly. He gets scared when he's around the twins. He really does. He gets terrified because they try to playfully bite at them, and really, anytime anyone says like that they're pissed off at the twins were not responding to the messages. I'm like, these are some of the sweetest girls I've ever met in my entire life. I do not get it. Like, you're pissed off because they don't have time to respond. Like, they're actually doing a lot of stuff.
Yes.
And they're very talented women. But anyway, so yeah, like this is the household that I grew up in, and even with my brothers, like, well, like sometimes I wish when we get together and put movies on a projector that someone would just record us talking. Terrible.
I think that would be funny. It's almost that whole MST 3K thing. I could definitely see that. That would be fun. But I do have to say, I am surprised. What was it about The Babysitter you didn't like? Because the thing that stuck out to me was, you know, part of what I've said is with women in horror, you know, the Soska twins are a great example of doing it and doing it well. And we'll talk about their new film coming up here in a second. But the thing I liked about The Babysitter was it was a strong female bad person, you know, and I think that's what I'm looking for. You know, if you look at the last 20, 30 years in the horror genre, all of your iconic characters are male characters. Jason, Leatherface, Pinhead, Freddy. You know, you look at it, short of Kathy Bates's character Annie Wilkes in Misery, I have not come across another female villain that was as charismatic and striking as B was in The Babysitter.
This is okay. I don't know if anyone's brought this up before. I'm sure they probably have. This is the difference between male villains and female villains in a horror film. Usually, the male villain is a man wearing a mask who's either traumatized or went through something, sexual deviant, whatever. Anytime, not anytime, most of the time, not all the time, most of the time, whenever there's a female villain on a horror film or a thriller, that woman is just a regular crazy person.
Right.
That's the honest truth. It's very rare that this person is someone that can be brought back to life, just some demon that. I mean, honestly, can you think of 5 killer, badass demon chicks on the top? Like 5 of them. Can you think of them right now? Because I can't.
No, the only character, and she's starting to become more and more popular, would be the character of Lilith.
Of who?
Lilith, allegedly Adam's first wife before Eve. You know that whole story?
No, I don't.
Lilith was allegedly, and this is now from the way I understand this was from some older Jewish texts. Allegedly, Lilith was Adam's first wife. She was made the same time as Adam. She was made the same way. And she refused to lay with Adam as he commanded, so she left him and went on to become the mother of all demons. Eve was then created from Adam's rib, whereas Lilith was created the same way as Adam from the dirt of the earth.
Is this decision made recently, or is this people actually believe that this is a thing? Because within the Jewish people, I've never heard of this in my entire life.
Really? I will send you a link to some of this, because I've actually thought about doing a film based off of that mythos, and you were actually the first person I thought of to talk about to it.
This is a first for
Okay.
me. I never heard of this before at all. So,
Okay. Well, after the show,
send that to me.
yeah, after the show, I'll send that to you. But when you talk about female characters, no, you're right. I can't think of one, and the reason.
No, just seem crazy bitches, basically. And I mean, the best one, in my opinion, is still Angela. But honestly, she was just a dude dressed as a chick.
I mean, that's
and,
true.
She never died. So she didn't come back to life. But I love the whole sleepaway camp series. It's terrible. It's raunchy. I fucking love it. I still, I adore it. I was starved for years. The moment that we saw that penis and those eyes Felissa Rose does. How she hasn't gotten more roles, I don't understand. But those eyes especially, oh, God bless her. Fucking love it. But, yeah, no, there really aren't. It's all just like, oh, she's just a crazy bitch.
Well, you know,
Crazy white girl.
part of the reason I bring it up is there have been articles recently, most recently on Bloody Disgusting. There were talks of potentially changing Leatherface to a female. And, you know,
no.
well, see, and that's what I was going to ask you. You know, if that was going to, you know, if we want to see a strong, dynamic female killer in a film, do you want it to be a classic character, say like a Leatherface, or you take someone like Pinhead, because in the comics, the girl character from the first film, Kirsty, winds up becoming Pinhead in the comics. Would you want to see an established character change to female, or would you want to see something new and original that can be carried on for future generations?
I want to see something new and original that can be carried on.
Okay.
Because it's just, honestly, it's insulting to just say, okay, well, what if we just turn it into a female? Because females can be Jason too. No, I think that instead of remaking all this shit that doesn't need to be remade, how about you just come up with a new female villain?
Yes.
I don't understand the way this works. Sometimes at night, whenever I'm trying to find a horror to watch, I find myself I get depressed just looking at the list. I feel like I spend more time trying to figure out what to watch than actually watching a movie at all. And I'm glad that we've brought this topic up, because I have thought about it so many times. Just like, wow, you're not gonna... And speaking of the female thing, with Evil Dead, a lot of people, whenever I first heard that Ash was going to be, like, they're remaking it and it's going to be a female, I was like, well, that's fucking retarded. One of the first people was like, why? Why is this happening? And then, I forgot who I was writing. There was some article, or like I had to write for some magazine or something, and I had to go and see this film, and it was at midnight, and I just so happened to get the luxury of sitting next to some very ghetto people who kept talking during most of the movie, and I felt like it was a scary movie too. The scene where she's like, I hope there are no talkers in here.
Right.
And one of the girls said that. She's like, y'all better stop talking during this movie. And she was sitting right next to me. And then she just kept fucking talking around, like, during the whole thing. And I was getting so upset, because that had to, I wanted to see this film, because even though I was told that it was a female Ash, I was told, hey, I don't want to spoil it for you. I just want to tell you it's not what you think. It's a lot better than that. You're probably going to love it. And so I'm trying to watch it, and finally I got so fed up. I stood up. I'm like this little Jewish white girl, like covered like in a theater, and it's all ghetto people. And I finally I just stood up and I'm like, shut the fuck up. And after I said it, I just kind of slowly sat down. I was like, I don't know if I should have done that. They might beat my ass as soon as I walk out of the theater. I was like, oh shit. But a lot of them started clapping, and then they let the movie finish. They laughed afterwards. I'm so glad that I didn't get my ass beat.
Right.
By a bunch of, like, whoever and stuff. But, anyway, long story short, as it turned out, I thought the Evil Dead remake was actually very well done.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. I do not like a lot of remakes. That one, you know, and this is the thing about critics that people forget. It's your own personal taste.
Yeah, it's not easy being a film reviewer. People don't get that at all.
Yeah.
We catch a lot of heat.
It's not easy being a film critic. It's not easy being an actress and all this. You know what happened recently? This is one of the reasons why I've kind of stepped back on some of the stuff that I'm doing. I found, I didn't find, my boyfriend Googled me, and he was very upset to find that, like, some of the nude, like, photo shoots that, like, I did a lot of nude artsy stuff, ballet, nude artsy stuff. Some of them have landed on porn sites. People, like, grab the photos.
What?
From my own website, they'll grab them, and they've apparently uploaded it on porn sites. And so when he Googled my name, he was like, hey, this picture of you showing up, and there's ads where people are butt-fucking each other next to it. I don't know if I can handle this. That's kind of weird. And I'm just like, what the fuck? And I used to Google myself all the time to make sure, like, you know, but recently, like, I had almost become a hermit. I've been focusing more on my art and on my own little side film projects that I'm still working on. But I'm also, like, been dealing with a bar and restaurant, which his family owns the restaurant, and I'm trying to train new bartenders. So I've been working constantly on something, trying to do my own thing and be a mother at the same time, and it's really hard. It's really challenging. And then to hear, hey, did you know that when you Google your name, your pictures pop up on this porn site? This is next to it.
Lord.
Like, and that's another reason I'm just like, oh my God. And it's embarrassing. I don't want people to Google my name and my pictures were taken and put on. And so I'm having to go through the process of finding out what the fuck this website is and why my picture's on there and how do I get it taken down, because you don't have permission to put this on there. But at the same time, people kind of do.
Right.
I can take, and I've done it before, just on my own blog. Like, I'm like, I like this picture of this girl. It's a good representation of what I'm talking about. But I don't know that girl personally. Where she's like, oh, it's fuck now. And it's like, hey, you don't have permission to use this. And I'd be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. But this is a porn site that people.
Sure.
And that's another thing that people don't think about, and that's why a lot of these girls, and especially with the sex scandals and everything, they're having to deal with. There's so many psychos out there. Some of the messages that we get on Facebook, like I've had to turn my messenger on my Facebook off a lot of times because of some of the messages I receive, and it's just fucking horrible. And that's how it's always been, but right now with social media, it comes right at you. It's not just weird fucking letters you get in the mail.
Right, you know, and that's an interesting thing too, you know, when we look at social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, all of these things, you know, do you feel like it's been helpful for the genre and the people that work in it, or do you feel like it's created more of a storm, a terrible storm, than it's done more good?
I don't know, it's a part of both. Honestly, how you deal with it is better. People are like me, it's not easy for me to deal with it.
Right.
It's hard for me not to say anything. Take the twins, for example. For the most part, like, they had to deal with a lot with someone I won't mention who went completely psycho, did a lot of weird shit towards them, and they didn't acknowledge him. Mm-hmm. They did not acknowledge him at all. He kept at it for a while. I don't know if he's being quiet now, but that's the best thing you can do. But there's people like me, like, it's really hard for me to keep my mouth shut right now. It all depends on that person, but you can still keep quiet about what you do, and people can still, you know,
find out, yeah.
Like, right, like Nick had pointed out to me before, he's like, all people have to do is go to your personal portfolio and take that picture and do whatever the fuck they want with it, and, you know, same with, you know, I know the reason why I tried to step back from stuff was other people in the industry. I got, like, stalked and harassed by one for years, and some of it was while I was pregnant with my own son. I had to have bodyguards with me one time in Texas right now because of it, and my child's pictures were taken, and horrible things were done to it.
No, and I know in both instances, the Soska situation and your situation, I know who both of those people are. So, I mean, I know what both of you have been through, not on a super personal level, but I mean, I definitely remember your situation for a while. I mean, that was pretty terrible, and you know,
It was horrifying. And a lot of people are like, well, that's what happens when you become a public figure. But like I said, me, I'm a sensitive person, and some of the stuff that had been done, and of course, like acted on a few times, but I was like, oh wow, I didn't realize that was going to blow up. But it did. There's like some of these people are just deranged. There's no reason to like bring family into it and find out where they work.
right.
It's a crazy world we're living in, and that's unfortunately another thing that people have to deal with. I can't even imagine what people like big timers in Hollywood have to deal with it, on top of like knowing that they had to suck some dude's cock just to get this role.
Well, you know, we keep bringing up the Soskas, you know, and I've been a fan of several of their films, you know, Dead Hooker in the Trunk, American Mary, See No Evil 2, you know, we can go on and on and on with everything that they've done, but with you being such a big Cronenberg fan, what do you think about their upcoming remake of Rabid?
I have no idea. I thought they had mentioned doing that maybe 2 years ago, so I don't know what their stance is on that. I would definitely be interested. And this is the thing about the twins. I do adore them. I don't like all their films. I did not like Dead Hooker in the Trunk. See No Evil 2. I have no idea why they made that. And yeah, I told them yes. But American Mary, I fucking adore. I loved it.
Yes.
I thought it was very well made. Some people didn't like the ending. I feel like anyone who said that they didn't like it, the ending is a big part of it. But I don't know. I can't say for sure because they've made films I didn't like. They've made stuff that I do like. So I'm hopeful, and I can't wait to see. But because Rabbit is one of those films that wasn't Cronenberg's strongest film.
Right.
All these people keep wanting to make, and Blumhouse, I blame for it. But, well, even before that, I forgot what it was. Same production company. Dune, something Dune.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of Michael Bay crap. He sucks. I don't care. He sucks. But there's a lot of stuff that keeps being remade. I'm like, hey, there's so many, like, if you want to remake, like, I know it's all to cash in, they just want to make money. But I'm like, hey, guys, if you're going to want to remake something, like, there's so many horror films that's been out there that could have been better, that had a great premise, you know, they just didn't have the means to make it great. Why not try to fixate on those?
Sure.
You can come up with, but it's all about making money.
Now, as you know, we touched on earlier. I asked you if you thought things were changing for women in the horror industry. You know, and like I said, you were the biggest influence on me on getting involved with women in horror. You know, with the evolution of how things have changed, everything that's going on in Hollywood, all of the scandals and things like that, you know, we are seeing a shift in the way that things are being done in Hollywood. You know, what do you feel is going to be the catalyst? What is it, you know, because I can't even answer this question. You know, what is it going to take for a female director to get her just due? I mean, is it going to be creating the new franchise? Is it doing something that's just so over the top that no one else will touch it? I mean, what do you feel is the key to showing that women do have the talent? There's no difference between a woman and a man other than what your gender is. You can do the same thing I can do. I can do the same thing you can do. The only thing you can do that I can right now that I can think of is have a baby.
The only thing that's going to take more is just more women. Some women can come in and make the best horror movie anyone's ever seen and win a fucking Oscar for it, and that will not change things. It needs to be, just more women need to be active, and not even just the horror industry, just in general.
Right.
Because it really is, it's still, all of it is a male-dominated industry. It's not just women in horror.
Sure.
That's not just it. And a lot of people shrug, they're like, well, women are in horror films all the time. We're like, no, we're talking behind the scenes. But, no, I think that even if a woman were to come out and she were to win an Oscar, maybe that might spark a few and go, see, we did it, I can do it too. But that's just it. We're simply outranked.
Mm.
That is the problem. And there really is nothing we can do except to try to encourage and inspire more women to get out there and make more films. And a lot of people have commented, well, the reason why, like, there's so many few, like, films made by women is because they don't make films as good as men. Well, that's bullshit. There really aren't that many female directors out there at all within all genres.
No, and I do agree with you on that. I do. It just seems like, you know, the horror industry gets a bad rap to begin with. And then it seems like even more so in the horror genre, women get put behind the eight ball. And I think it's sad. You know, last week's show, I had Jessica Stabbit on as a guest, and we were talking about this whole thing. And, you know, I had asked her, you know, the whole thing about, you know, do you want to see a male, you know, a traditionally male character turned into a female? You know, what is it that you want to see? And, you know, she was behind the idea on that. But, you know, I think it's interesting because she's a budding filmmaker as well. She's, you know, she's done acting and things like this. And what I had asked her was, you know, we talk about how women are portrayed in films, in particular horror films. You know, you always have the tropes. You have the brainy girl. You have the slutty girl, you know, the goody two-shoes. You have all of these archetypes. But at the end of the day, you know, since we can go back to the 70s on this, while women have certainly been objectified in horror films and have definitely been made out to be the victims, at the end of a lot of these films, they wind up being the one to take the bad guy down. They're the one that survives till the end. Do you find that to be an interesting parallel to how women are portrayed in film? That they're the ones that kill the big bad guy at the end? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think it is at all. I think a lot of audiences, even they'll prefer the woman to be the one to last longer. Even if say, Jamie Lee Curtis didn't show her tits in Halloween.
Right.
She survived.
But she did smoke pot.
Males expect the female to win a lot of these instances. But the fact that Sarah's a final girl, the whole final girl thing, it still doesn't matter. We're talking about women actually making these films, which is very, I mean, it's recently it has gotten better. There are a lot of women out there trying hard, making their own films, and I can list several films that are underrated. Directors like Kat Shea, for instance, who have interviewed, and you actually had her, I think, on my birthday show. Yeah. I think it was you.
Yeah, no, you came on for 2 shows on Horror Society, and she was one of the guests, yeah.
And I've always looked up to her, great director, and she has made some very fine points in this that I could probably explain it better than I ever could, because she's had years more experience, and she even had it, like, I mean, she directed Poison Ivy, too, so she had to deal with, like, the backlash of Drew Barrymore being underage and having to do a make-out sex scene with Tom Skerritt.
Right.
So, it's kudos to her. Women like that who have balls who want to make, that wasn't a horror film, but she still, you know, she also made horror films. But, to me, I think that the final person, I don't know why, I don't know, I still feel like the final girl is because even the men secretly, like, want them to be the final person, but as Randy says, and explained to just a very simple formula, and I feel like it's very lazy writing that people go by because the same thing as a rape or whatever culture it's become normalized.
Yeah.
So that's another issue.
Sure. And now the other thing that Jessica and I talked about was we look at the content of horror films, and I spoke to another female journalist, and she had made mention of the fact that women who do horror films typically tend to ground their horror more in reality, in factual based things, things that they may have experienced in life or things like that. Do you feel like that's a true statement that women's horror could be more reality based and not so much supernatural or monster based?
I haven't personally seen it. Most of the females that I have actually worked with or been there for, even films that I haven't even worked on, I still feel like some of them use horror films. Well, maybe they don't so much today. I know a lot of them in the past use that as basically a gateway.
Sure.
To get into acting in general. And they're like, I'll do whatever I have to. And that's on them. And if they claim, oh, well, how'd you do this? It's like, well, you know what? In some cases, they actually put themselves through that. And then they try to go back years later and say, well, that wasn't fair that I was treated that way. But that's indeed what they wanted. But I don't know. I feel like a lot of them aren't using it to their advantage. I really do.
Now, like I said, big person involved with the women in horror, you power through and fight for women's rights, everything like that, and it's applaudable. I'm so proud to be able to call you a fellow journalist and a friend. We agree on all of these topics. With the whole women in horror movement and with how things are slowly starting to progress and move forward, do you ever foresee a time when we won't have to have a women in horror month where we can just talk horror and it doesn't matter the gender if it's a male or a female director?
I am hopeful that with everything, especially everything going on in Hollywood, that maybe we will, but at the same time, I'm worried that it may come back to bite us in the ass. I don't know, I'm skeptical. I'm hopeful, but I'm worried at the same time. A part of me worries that, especially in the horror industry, not every other industry, but the horror, I feel like we may be outnumbered. Mm-hmm. Because there are a lot of females that love horror films, but most of the fans are, male figures. I don't know. I'm hopeful. I really do wish that it will never be equal.
Sure.
It will never be equal. I would like for it to, but who am I kidding? I'd be lying if I said that this will ever be equal. That's ridiculous. It never will.
No, and it's a shame that you feel that way because I have hope that one day, we don't have to divide it. It was like I remember years ago, I helped sponsor a film for a gay and lesbian film festival. The name of the movie was Hellbent, and we got a lot of flack from that. They're like, well, people were like, well, why did you back a gay horror movie? And I'm like, it's not a gay horror movie. It's a horror movie that happened to have gay characters in it. It's just like women making horror films. I don't watch it because it's a woman making horror films. It happens to be a horror film that was made by a woman. There should be no distinction on who's making the film, who's producing the film, and maybe I'm just a rare person when it comes to that. I just like to be entertained. I don't give a damn if you're a man or a woman. More power to you, no matter what you are, for doing it.
And this is the thing with the women who are actually doing it. I've seen it mismatch. Like, I'll see some women, female directors. You know, I'm friends with a lot of female directors, writers, and then the actresses. So when I check my daily news feed on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, I read all of it and I try to soak it all in. A lot of times I'm just like shaking my head, or I'm just like, why is this person existing and why am I thinking them? But and some other time I'm just like, right on, sister. But
no, I get it.
These are completely different. They really are.
Yeah, it's frustrating sometimes. I mean, I agree with you, and you know, that'll lead to this question. You know, do you, you know, again, I agree with you. Women should have an equal voice. You know, everyone should be heard equally. Everyone should be given the same opportunity. But just like there are many men out there in the industry who go about it the wrong way, just say it wrong, or it comes across wrong, do you feel like there are some women in the industry who are going about trying to make change the wrong way?
I do.
No, and there's nothing wrong. I mean, I'm not asking you to name names or anything, but I think that's an aspect that some people don't talk about. You know, sometimes there's a time to raise your voice and to be argumentative, but at the same time, you know, there's a time to have civil discussion. And again, that's why I wanted you on the Victor Salva episode, because while I know what your stance was on the situation, I knew that you could come on and provide a great factual argument without it turning into a screaming match. You know, that's always been one of the things that I've liked about you as a journalist and as a person. You know, you're all for women's rights, you're all for the equality and all of that, but at the same time, you don't come across as this man-hating woman, and do you understand? But you understand what I'm saying, right? I mean, there are some.
Don't get me wrong. There are several times where people have tried to argue with me about Donald Trump, and it was really hard not for me to comment with, "Hey, you're just a retarded person." It's really hard. It's really hard for me not to post that. But some of these people are really good friends of mine, people I grew up with,
right?
And then not just that, people who I've worked with with films or other websites, what have you, and. One thing about on my page, and that's become so, like, I get people who come up to me in the bar or coworkers, and it's just like, man, you got like 500 something comments on one post about Donald Trump. What is going on there? And I'm just like, don't engage. But
hey, I always like going. I always like going to your Facebook feed and reading those things. I get entertained reading your page.
Oh, God. There's so many. I just, you know, collectively over, like, since MySpace, just a lot of people, like, but that's the thing. I'm just like, I don't care if you agree with me. You can disagree with me. We could debate all the live long day, but just don't blasting people and, you know, like, that's what I don't like to do. And in my early 20s, like, hell, whenever we used to do the gash, I don't know if anyone's going to listen who remembers the gash, but when we did the gash, it was fucking awesome. We had so many listeners. We had a lot of people in the chat room. We used to post blue waffle pictures for them to watch. For that was a highly acclaimed podcast show, and this is before smartphone days. Mind you, this was in Kevin Finney. Like, I mean, fucking Kevin Finney, I fucking adore him. I fucking love him, and he always, like, every time I see him, he's just like, he's just so sweet. And Night of the Demons was really my favorite. It's my favorite horror film of all time. And I used to rent it. And so when he first came on as a guest on our show, I was freaking the fuck out. I'm like 22 years old. I'm about to be 32. That was 10 something years ago, by the way. 10
Right.
fucking years ago. And we used to do this shit all the time. We had so many guests. Like, we had police academy actors on our fucking show. And it was fucking great. And that's whenever they first announced Women in Horror Month on one of our shows. And I was one of the first people to go, well, why do we need Women in Horror Month?
Right.
And I said it under my breath. I didn't know what it was. And that's when Hannah announced it. She announced it on our show. But we were raunchy, we were dirty. And Kevin Tinney, director of Night of the Demons, the movie that I used to rent on VHS all the time because the cover looked cool, and honestly, there's a lot of great shots in that movie.
Yes.
For anyone that's listening, go and rewatch that film. The mirror shot especially. Holy fucking shit. But, you know, he came on and he called us, he eventually coined us, and we had the tagline, it's like The View with PMS. But he would always make jokes because I sound like a 12-year-old Texan. He always still makes jokes. Anytime he sees me when we're out at a convention, or we actually, like, talk in person, or over a podcast together, he always says, yes, lady, it's time for your bed. You need to go to bed right now because I sound like a little girl. I have a little girl voice.
No, it comes across well. It really does. We're coming up here at the end, so let me ask you, you know, what are your hopes for the future of women in horror? What are the things that you're hoping to see over, let's just say, the next year? You know, are you looking forward to anything in terms of projects or anything like that?
I have, well, you know, a lot of people know I've recently sort of become a hermit. So, I don't know a lot of female projects that are coming up soon, but one thing I do want to say is, with everything that's breaking out with Hollywood and Women in Horror Month, all these other ladies who are wanting to take a chance, don't take advantage of it. Don't say, oh, this is my time, I can do whatever the fuck I want, I can flash my video. No, make something great. I want to see, you know what I really want? I want to see a female director who's like Stanley Kubrick or Brian De Palma.
Two good choices. Great filmmakers. I would love to see that.
That's what I want to see. I want to see a female director or writer who can dish out the same fucking shit those brilliant artists can. And you know what? A lot of people like look down upon Brian De Palma. Brilliant fucking director. Fuck them.
Yes.
He's amazing. Carrie was awesome. I love his split screens. But that's the shit that I want to see. Like, don't dish out these shitty fucking horror films and go, well, you know, made this shitty, like, B movie. No. And say, oh, I did it too. No, bitch. No. Spend time on a script.
Yes. Yes. Well, you know, like I said, we're right here at the end, you know. I know you basically, no. You know, like you said, you've basically become a hermit over the last couple of months, but, you know, are we going to be able to look forward to seeing more on your blog? Are we going to see more art out of you? We're going to see more film, you know? Kind of tell us what we can look forward to, because some of us want to read what you're thinking.
I've kind of been, like, I have stuff coming. I've just been kind of, I'm not ready to present it yet. It's coming, but I can't say anything else without
giving it away. Now, I understand, you know, and it's like I said, you know this. You're always welcome on the podcast. You know, you always have a spot at Morbidly Beautiful for anything that you want to write or put out there. So don't be a stranger, you know. I know we live across the country from one another, but I do enjoy the few times that we do get to chat. So, you know, feel free to come back on anytime, Rebekah.
All right, well, thank you so much for having me. It was nice doing this again. And again, if anyone is still, like, listening, female future directors, just, you know, don't take advantage of it. Really go the long haul, work your way in, spend time on that project, no matter how long it takes.
Once again, I would like to say thank you to the always amazing Rebekah Herzberg for coming on to the show. Rebekah is just such a multifaceted and talented person. Forget male, forget female. Just a great person to represent our genre. Writer, journalist, sculptor, actress, director, you name it, she's done it. She is definitely a name that people should be watching. So keep an eye out for her and all of her work. Coming up in just a few moments, we're going to do our final Digital Dismemberment Spotlight this evening, where we will be covering Scream Factory's Blu-ray release of George Romero's Day of the Dead. But before that, we're going to go into our final Metal Massacre Spotlight this evening. The name of the band is Dimmu Borgir, the CD is Puritanical Euphoric Misanthropia, and the song is Burn in Hell. was puritanical, euphoric misanthropia, and the song was Burn in Hell. Dimmu Borgir is a Norwegian symphonic black metal band from Oslo, Norway, formed in 1993. The name is derived from Dimmu Borgir, a volcanic formation in Iceland, the name of which means dark cities or dark castle fortresses in Icelandic, Pharisee, and Old Norse. Make sure, if you want to find out more about this band, where they're touring, to get their merchandise and their CDs, head on over to www.facebook.com/Dimmu Borgir. But now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our final digital dismemberment. In our final digital dismemberment spotlight this evening, we are covering Scream Factory's Blu-ray release of George A. Romero's Day of the Dead. Of course, directed by George A. Romero, produced by David Ball, Salah M. Hassasin, Ed LeMay, and Richard P. Rubenstein. Special effects were handled by Tom Savini, Mark Mann, Greg Nicotero, and Stephen Kershoff. The cast included Laurie Cardell, Terry Alexander, Joe Pilato, Gerald Conroy, Anthony DeLeo Jr., Richard Liberty, Sherman Howard, Gary Howard Clark, Ralph Marrero, John Amplis, Philip G. Kelms, and Greg Nicotero. It was released by Scream Factory in 2013. And the premise: in this, the third film in the continuing saga of the undead from writer-director George A. Romero, a small group of scientists and soldiers have taken refuge in an underground missile silo where they struggle to control the flesh-eating horror that walks the earth above. But will the final battle for the future of the human race be fought among the living, or have they forever unleashed the hunger of the dead? Laurie Cardell, Joe Pilato, and Richard Liberty star in this controversial classic with groundbreaking gore effects by Tom Savini. And it should go without saying, of course, spoiler alerts. This is the final film of Romero's original Dead trilogy, and it has been a film that only recently begun to take its place in history with genre fans. It was the lowest grossing film of the original series, and Romero's original script was estimated at $7 million, but only if it was an R-rated film. He decided to go with an unrated version of the film with a $3.5 million budget. Many changes were made to the script, and several scenes and character developments changed from his original vision considerably. In fact, the character of Sarah, John, McDermott, Miguel, Dr. Logan, Bub, and Rhodes were the only original characters that made it from Romero's original script. Tom Savini's makeup work is at its peak, and we also see a young Greg Nicotero getting his chops. Romero does a fantastic job showing the isolation the scientists and soldiers share in the mines, and the impending madness and desperation that is starting to affect everyone. The acting, locations, music, and overall sense of doom that hangs over the film lends well to its credibility and makes this film a true classic. While I would have loved to see what George realized his dream with a $7 million budget, this incarnation of the film was a fine way to give the dead their day. A little bit more on the film. Sarah looks up at the wall to a calendar and walks over to it. As she stares at the picture and gently puts her hand upon it, dozens of undead hands rip through the wall at her. She then snaps awake as the helicopter she is in lands to search for survivors. She and Miguel walk out into the street with a bullhorn, calling out for any survivors while John and McDermott call out over the radio. In the utter desolation of the city, their voices begin to draw the dead out from everywhere towards their location. In frustration, they head back to the helicopter and back towards the base. Upon landing in a gated area surrounded by zombies, they head underground where they run into Steele and Rickles, who demand that Miguel come with them to round up fresh specimens for Dr. Frankenstein.
Sarah, seeing that he is in no shape, tries to take over, but Miguel shrugs her off and in the process almost gets Rickles killed by a zombie. After a small scuffle, we see the two zombies dropped off in a lab environment chained to a wall. Sarah and Miguel are seen arguing and he slaps her twice before she sedates him. She leaves him in the room alone and heads to a meeting with Rhodes, and they argue over lab conditions as well as Miguel's. Fisher and Sarah head out to Dr. Logan's lab, and he gleefully shows them several different experiments he is working on for teaching the zombies. They argue different theories for a few moments, and at the meeting they discuss the radio transmissions and various things going on until Sarah tries to leave. Rhodes threatens to have her shot if she does not sit down, and after a few tense moments, she does. Rhodes lays down how things are going to run from here on out and continues to rant until Logan shows up. After berating him for a moment, the doctor turns it around on Rhodes, and Logan convinces him to give him a little bit more time. A bit later, Sarah and Miguel fight again and she kicks him out. After going to get some aspirin, she walks through a fight involving several of the soldiers but is saved by McDermott. She goes and hangs out with him and John back at their camp. They discuss different philosophies and drink for a while until Sarah passes out. The next day, Sarah walks into the lab and sees Fisher trying to work with an unresponsive zombie. Logan comes in and starts talking about rewarding them. He takes them to see Bub, the zombie he's been working with. He shows them that Bub retains some knowledge of his past life by using a razor, a toothbrush, and a book. Rhodes comes in and is appalled at what Logan has done with Bub. When Bub speaks some words, salutes Rhodes, and then points an empty gun at him, Rhodes goes to shoot him until Logan steps in between them. A meeting is called and Rhodes wants everything killed while Logan argues for more research. More specimens are gathered, and one breaks loose from Miguel biting another soldier. That soldier accidentally shoots another, and Miguel is bitten in the process. He runs off in the darkness with Sarah in pursuit. They arrive outside of John's, and she amputates his arm as Rhodes and his men show up. They all pull guns on one another, but cooler heads prevail, and Rhodes agrees to let them keep him there. They leave, and later, McDermott and Sarah go for medical supplies. After hearing some of Logan's notes on tape, they duck Rhodes' men and watch Logan and Bub interact. Rhodes walks in and finds Logan feeding Bub remains from dead soldiers and kills him. Rhodes loses it and threatens to kill everyone if John does not agree to fly him to safety. Miguel escapes and lets the zombies into the complex before he is devoured himself. Will Sarah and her friends escape the wrath of Rhodes and his men while trying to escape the zombies? Will Rhodes prevail and kill everyone, or will the zombies have their day? You're going to have to watch to find out. Bonus features, and there's plenty. There's an audio commentary with Romero, Savini, and production designer Cletus Anderson and actress Lori Cardille. There's also a audio commentary with Roger Avery. There's a couple of featurettes that include World's End, The Legacy of Day of the Dead. It runs about an hour and 25 minutes. It's a new documentary with members of the cast and crew discussing one another in the making of the film. A wealth of information and insight is included in the discussions and would be well worth the price of the disc itself, and that's new for this release. There's behind-the-scenes footage that runs about 30 minutes. It's behind-the-scenes look at the makeup in the film, courtesy of Tom Savini's personal archives. There's a Wampum Mine promotional video that runs 8 minutes, and it's an old video promoting the mines. There's one called Underground, a look into the Day of the Dead mines. It runs 8 minutes, and that's from Cult Magazine, takes a look at the current day mines that were used in the film. There are, of course, theatrical trailers, TV spots, still galleries. It is a one-disc set, 1080p high-definition widescreen, 235/1. Again, Scream Factory brings us yet another genre classic to Blu-ray DVD with Romero's Day of the Dead. With the previous edition being released on Blu-ray back by Anchor Bay in 2007, the question on everyone's mind is, would another Blu-ray edition of this film be worth it? The answer, in my humble opinion, is that, yes, the wealth of special features alone make this edition the one to own. The brand new documentary, World's End, The Legacy of Day of the Dead, is a wealth of information and does not skimp on the detail. It was also nice to have the inclusion of Savini's makeup footage, and the Wampum Mines video was a nice historical footnote that tied in well with the Underground, A Look into the Day of the Dead Mines feature. The inclusion of several trailers and the TV spots brings back a nice feeling of nostalgia as well. If there's any complaint about this disc, it is that, to some, the transfer may look a little too clean. While it's a minor complaint at best, this release is the perfect example, once again, of why Scream Shout Factory is just the absolute best when it comes to releasing these films on Blu-ray for horror. I give this movie a 4.5 out of 5. The Blu-ray gets a 10 out of 10. Make sure to head on over to Shout and Scream Factory to pick up your copy, the Blu-ray copy, of George Romero's Day of the Dead. Again, it's been another great episode. This was the second in our Women in Horror Month 2018 edition. I want to say thank you so much to Rebekah Herzberg for being on. It's always enlightening when she's on. And again, I think it's, forget men or women, she is one of the most talented individuals in the industry. If you're not reading her work, if you're not watching her work, get on it because you're missing out. I want to say thank you to Velocity Entertainment for sending me my copy of Slaughterhouse of the Rising Sun for review. And also thank you to Screen Factory for our Blu-ray release edition of George A. Romero's Day of the Dead. We also had a fantastic evening listening to the amazing metal we had. Bands including Cannibal Corpse, Dimmu Borgir and Mortician. Make sure to tune in Friday nights to Mile High Radio at milehighradio.com to catch the Calling Hours Horror Podcast starting at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific. And make sure to tune in next week as we will have yet another special guest for our Women in Horror Month coverage. And until then, this is the Dead Man, Michael Jones of MorbidlyBeautiful.com, telling you all to rest in peace.